Hello. Good morning, everybody. How are you this morning?
So,
Russell here, Randall here, Danny here from Code Noobs. Welcome back to another amazing episode. We have a good one for you today.
What's
Um,
the day and time? I'm really
it
confused.
is Saturday, March 30th,
really confusing.
2024 at 9 a.m. exactly Eastern Standard
Mm.
Time. So,
And before we get
On
into
the
things, if
nose.
everybody
yeah,
just wants to comment down below how your week's been, we would love to hear
yeah.
from you.
Yeah, we want to know how your week's been. I actually was on a call with somebody in the group last week or earlier this week, and they really appreciated how we engage with the audience and how we answer your questions. So we encourage you to actually type your questions in the comments because it's something that we provide for you for absolutely free, right?
Yeah.
Come to the live stream
Hmm.
so you can ask all the questions you want and pick our brains or pick our butts, whatever you want.
Yeah.
Right.
Talking about free, I mean, there's a lot of free coding resources out there. And,
Mm,
I've amassed a whole library of just free coding stuff. So why am I
yeah.
not getting ahead?
Oh, that's a good question. I think
Yeah.
I think our live stream today actually talks about that a little bit.
Oh, then we
Uh,
should not talk about that at all. That would be weird for us to talk about the topic of the live stream.
yeah, that would be so weird. Go ahead, Danny. What are you gonna
No, I
say?
was gonna say,
Mhm.
it is a funny thing though, because like I remember when we first started, I had like, and I still have so much stuff, but I think it's also like it's also dangerous because there is so many resources. Like, dude, it's
Yeah.
so easy to get like lost in just all of that and like not know where to go and just go from one thing to the next, like that shiny object syndrome, right? Where you just keep going from one thing to the next because there's so many like new things, cool things, fun things to explore. It gets
Yeah.
overwhelming.
It makes me really think of like my life probably 10 years ago, where I had this obsession with collecting resources and it gave me this false sense of security that I understood things because I collected resources. Like I would buy a book and be like, well, I don't really have to read the whole book. I have it now. So if I need it, I can look at it whenever I have it. And
Yeah.
I would do that with all sorts of things. And I think a lot of people do that. I don't think I was like alone in that. And it
That's
makes you sort of believe, sorry, you guys keep trying to chime in. It makes you sort of believe that like because you have these resources, you can use them at some point, but you don't actually know any of this stuff. All right, your
It's
turn.
like a it's like a very common thing with procrastination too. It's like that feeling like you're making progress and that false sense that you're making like you're moving forward even though you're really not. And it's like a way I think too to like unconsciously handle our fears, like the fear of success, the fear of actually making a big change in life. All of that like is
Yeah.
scary. And so like, you know, we want to like prevent that whether we know it or not. So we do these sorts of things as a way to, means to do that. Sorry, Randy.
Yeah.
So like the thing is that when we collect these resources or when we buy the book, it scratches that itch. So there's
Yeah.
there's there's this moment of discontent where we want something because we imagine that our life will be better when we have that. We want to be a developer, we want to earn a certain amount of money, we want to do this thing, have this thing because we imagine and we can see into the future that when we have this, our life will be better. We'll be happy. Everything will be good. And so oftentimes collecting the resources, downloading the PDF, buying the book, the Kindle, the course, whatever it is, that scratches the itch. And
Mhm.
then the itch is gone and there's nothing left to do.
Yeah.
But therein lies the problem with collecting resources is that there's zero accountability with most of these resources.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Totally. I remember like when I first started, I would say started to get serious about development, not anywhere close to actually becoming serious, but started to think about it seriously. I did sort of the lowest investment thing, which was get Code Academy because it was cheap and I could like play with it, but I never felt like I got anywhere with it because I would just go on there, play around for a little bit, do a couple of things, and then leave it. And by the time I came back to it, uh, I never actually remembered what I did before. And so I think that's what you touched upon is really important is that like accountability aspect, right? And I think that's why it's important to invest in yourself as a developer because it keeps you accountable. And I don't mean just invest time. That is important. Obviously, what we invest our time in is what we grow. But what I mean is like actually investing money. I think the best thing I ever did as a developer was actually join a boot camp. And it's not because the boot camp was good at all. In fact, the boot camp really sucked. But
Yeah.
what it did was it forced me, because I had such a monetary investment, it forced me to be accountable, right? And our group, the three of us, also forced me to be accountable because I think without us meeting every Saturday, which we've now done, I was thinking about this the other day, we've now done this for like 2 or 3 years straight. Like I think we've
Yeah.
for 3 years straight, every Saturday we've met to discuss software development, which is mind blowing, right? And that's what's
Yeah, we've
kept
never missed a Saturday, I don't think. I don't think
never.
we've actually ever missed one,
I don't think
like,
we
which is
have,
pretty
like, literally
impressive.
haven't missed one. So I think it's because we all made that investment at the same time. We all put in that like chunk of money, and the money, like literally, I don't think the boot camp really helped us as much as the three of us just meeting did. Obviously, there's like the curriculum and whatever, like they teach you things, but the accountability aspect and the investment into our future, the mental shift around that, I think is the biggest thing. Um,
Wait, I just to that point though too. What's funny is like we saw so many people in our boot camp in the same class as us who just
mhm.
like you could see them just fall off as
Yeah,
time went on, where they just stopped doing assignments, stopped doing stuff because the boot
yeah,
camp wasn't motivating them. It wasn't encouraging them, and they didn't have a group like we did. And so they
right.
just started to lose out, even though they had that investment. Like it was enough at the beginning, and then it started to fall away because they didn't have that accountability, they didn't have that motivation. And like we built that in thankfully early on, and that
Yeah,
really did help. Like, I mean, it was like leaps and bounds, it made
yeah.
us so much better off.
I think it's
Yeah,
interesting
one
that we had the workshop every Saturday, but there was no accountability aspect to it. Like they were
No.
literally just like, hey, if you didn't do everything, just copy and paste it while you're here in the workshop. And so that's I think why so many people fell off because they knew that there was no accountability. They knew that nobody was going to check their progress or see where they were going or help guide them in the right direction when they were sort of falling off. They were just like, "Oh, well, we got your money already." So,
Well, dude, that's just colleges and boot camps, dude. That's what they want is your money. And I will tell you, because I've been in academia teaching now for like 15 years. And like in the last 5 years, dude, we have to like four times, five, no, six times a semester, I have to go online and say whether students are doing well in a progress thing so they can intervene. And I get asked all the time now to change people's grades and stuff because they don't give a crap if these kids learn anything. They
yeah,
got their money and they just want them to stay there so they keep getting their money. That's all they care about. And it's really sad, dude. It's depressing. Like it
that
really
is
like,
sad.
I mean, it's a mess. Yeah.
Yeah, so in terms of motivation, people are oftentimes motivated by pleasure and pain. So like we talked about collecting of resources, and this is oftentimes driven by pleasure because they imagine this pleasure in the future, and then they think when I get that resource, then I'll have it. And they acquire the resource and then it just sits on a shelf. But there's
Yeah,
also the pain part, and that's where investing in yourself comes in. And like you were saying, Russ, with Code Academy that you did back in the day, it was a small investment. So it was the
yeah,
beginning, but it wasn't really that painful. It's oftentimes helpful to
mhm,
stretch, to make it somewhat painful in terms of payment, because what that does is that gives you the pain. It puts your back up against the wall. All of a sudden,
yeah,
you realize that you got to get this done, or else you wasted your money. Which means you wasted your time, which means you wasted your life, and so then you have the pain, and also you have the pain from not accomplishing the pleasure that you want to get from it.
I just wanted
totally.
to answer real quick. Bryce asked, how did our group get together and hold ourselves accountable? And he asked, were we friends prior to the boot camp? Yeah. So we've known each other. We've been friends our whole lives. So that's
Since the
also
teeth.
was helpful. Yeah. And that's, yeah, literally. It's a long story, but yeah, not really, but it's just funny. But yeah, so we've been friends forever. And then we decided to do this together. And that's kind of like we decided to join we decided to get back into coding together. And so that's what kind of motivated it. So it was easier for us in the sense that we were already friends. I think that helped. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I think it's important to note that there was no good time for us to do this. When all of us decided to do that boot camp together, it was not convenient for any of us. because
No.
we all were working other jobs. We were up to other things. It wasn't a great time. We didn't have a bunch of free time. It wasn't the perfect opportunity. It definitely wasn't the perfect price. But we were just like, we're fed up with things as they are. We need to change.
Yeah. And I
Yeah,
think that paying for that also helped us solidify that commitment, right? We all just decided at the same time we're going to commit to this, and we were like, you know what? We're going to do whatever it takes, take money out if we need to, or I think I think I did the payment plan at the time because I was like, I don't want to pay like 6,000 up front, so I just did the payment plan. But there was still, I still paid like 500-600 bucks a month or something like that. Um, and so we all just committed to it at the same time, and we've known each other, and I think that definitely helped because it helped us build that accountability in Saturdays because we were like happy just being around each other, right? And so
yeah.
that's something that everyone else in our boot camp didn't have because they were just in it by themselves. And I don't think, honestly, if I think back upon it, can you guys think of anybody in our boot camp who went on to have success?
No.
Well, I
No.
mean, some of them did go back to teach at the boot camp.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah,
eh, I don't know how, but yes.
yeah,
Mhm.
But like they never had success as becoming a software developer because what they ended up doing was they just did the boot camp and then they weren't accountable. They didn't really like commit to it. A lot of them just copy pasted and then they just went back to their job afterwards. So I
kind
don't
of.
think
I'm
they
just about.
invested in their future outs. They just wasted that money.
I think you guys are touching on a good point too, that there was no perfect time. Like we had all been kicking around the idea of getting back into coding because like Randy said, we were all unhappy like in our
Mhm.
current jobs and stuff. And like it just came out of the blue kind of in a sense because we were talking about, oh, we should start in like 6 months or a year. And then it was just like, oh, this is starting this month. And we just,
Yeah.
just kind of just did it because sometimes it's the best way to do it is just pull the trigger because otherwise you'll just always find a reason to put it off. And it wasn't easy. Like I remember through that year, because it was 11 months, I don't think I went out like at all that entire year because like
Yeah.
except for like a very few occasions because I just didn't have time like between work and that and everything you just don't have time but I really wanted it to be successful so I was like all right I'm gonna put everything in now because then in 11 months I'll be in a much better position and I mean in a lot of respects the boot camp didn't help a ton but like our working together and all helped a lot and that time I put in helped a lot.
Yeah.
Danny, you wrote a post this week about how boot camps are the new undergrad degree.
They
And
are.
I think that's hilarious because they are 100% in that once you have done a boot camp, you qualify for a job at Starbucks. Like that's
Yeah.
pretty much how they're identical to an
And not a
undergrad degree
development
at this.
job at
You pay
Starbucks.
you pay way too much and you get a job working as a barista at Starbucks. And so like this is one of the things where a whole bunch of people in our group have done boot camps already and they're
Yeah.
still unemployed. And that's just
Yeah.
like despicable on the part of the boot camps. But here's the crazy thing is that some of our students, within days of us teaching them how to get work, they've gotten work. They've been
Yeah.
hired in days when we teach them. And people are still struggling to get jobs out there, which is crazy.
Yeah.
What's funny about boot camps and colleges too is they don't all they emphasize is like nothing practical. They don't care about whether you do well. They don't care because you know what? If you actually look at the numbers, like boot camps are big on saying like I remember ours used to say like 91% of people after 6 months get a job. Now they lowered that number a lot. But what they don't tell you is how many of them are working for the boot camp after they graduate? How many of them are they
Yeah.
counting? What jobs are they counting as jobs? Because a lot of them count like Starbucks, they count like anything as being employed, even though you're not employed in the field. Colleges do this all the time to pad their numbers. And it's really deceptive and really messed up. But you have
Yeah.
to be really careful and look at that fine print to understand, like, and a lot of times you can't even find that information. So they're just flat out like lying to you about, what it means to get a job, and whether you're in development.
Yeah. I want to like touch upon an objection that I would probably be thinking if I was watching this right now, which is, well, I just don't have money to invest in myself right now, right? I don't have an extra couple $100 or whatever it is, right? I don't have 20 extra dollars to invest in myself. So what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to invest in myself. What would you answer to that?
Yeah, so here's the thing. Like when you become a developer, you join a different class of human being. It's the class of human being that can do whatever you want, whenever you want, wherever you want, and make however much money you want. And
Yeah.
so it kind of comes down to how much do you want it? Because if if you actually wanted something that could change your life like that, you would do whatever it takes. Like if you're a mother and a car falls on your child, you can lift that car off. Like it doesn't matter how much that car is because it needs to get done. And if you're one of those people who not just says that you want to become a coder because that's like the virtue signaling you can do on social media, tell everybody, yeah, I'm going to be a coder. And then everybody says, high five, great job, thoughts and prayers, all this BS.
Yeah.
But if you're actually somebody who wants to change your life, you will move heaven and high water. You will ask family to borrow money. You will take out loans. You will work extra hours. You will sell everything you have around the house because that's what you have to do in order to get where you want to go. It's not, you're not going to be able to change your life by doing the same stuff you've been doing your whole entire life. That's called insanity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember when we started, I remember you actually helped me out with the first month because I couldn't afford it at the time because we were starting like I wasn't prepared to start at that time. And then you helped me out and then I did a lot of budgeting to make it work for the rest of the months because especially like the way I get paid is really strange in academia. Don't want to get into it, but it's very like long periods. So it's like, yeah. I mean, but that's what you have to do sometimes. You have to reach out. You have to, if you're really committed, you just have to like, it's hard. It's like, and I think that's the other problem with colleges and stuff is like, it's so easy to get these insane loans that are like predatory and that screw you over because they don't care about the person afterwards. They got the money. And it's like, I think that's the hard part. So if you care about yourself, you just have to make the effort to do it
But
sometimes.
how worthwhile was it, Danny? Because afterwards
Oh
you've been
God,
able to
yeah.
get job after job and literally name your price.
Yeah, and that's just it though, because it's the commitment too, right? Because like I knew like I got into it, I was invested then, right? 100% for lots of reasons. Not only did I not want to let myself down, I didn't want to let you guys down. So it's like you get this motivation and accountability, and then like, yeah, I was just committed to 100%. Now it's like way better. Things are so much better than they were before. And I think that's like the other thing. It changes your life dramatically. And it can, but you have to commit to it 100%. And I think that's the hard part for a lot of people to wrap their heads around.
Yeah. Here's my answer, and I like both your answers. They're great. Um, so being a developer doesn't mean necessarily that you know code or that you understand HTML or C sharp or any of those things. What it actually means is that you're just a really good problem solver. And I think finding a way to invest in yourself is probably the first and biggest problem you're going to have to solve if you really want to become a developer. And I think it's time that if you are considering this and if that is an objection that you have, you need to sit down and ask yourself, do I really want this? Right. And I think you touched upon that, Randall, because I think a lot of people play around with this idea. And like, I know, one of our coaching students, Chris, he was talking about this a lot. And this is why he actually joined, because he's like, I feel like I've been orbiting around software development for years. And then he's never really like taken on um, the idea of becoming a software developer. And I think if you are orbiting, if you feel like you're sort of like, I like the idea of it, but there's all these little objections around it, you need to sit down and say, is this something that I really want or is it not? Am I just like playing around with this? Is it like a fantasy of mine or is it something I want to make into a reality? And then yeah, like once you do that, you can start to figure out like what Danny said, which is budgeting, right? Because if you really want this, it's look, you're asking for a job from a company that's going to pay you six figures. And I don't understand how you could possibly expect a company to pay you six figures or more and you not invest any money in yourself. Right? It's just not a reality. And so you can look at your budget and see. I mean, I've seen plenty of people in this group who I've had personal conversations with where they're like, yeah, I just don't have any money to invest in anything right now. I'm just totally broke. And then, like, literally the next day on their feed, I'll see like they're at a basketball game or they're like, spending money at Starbucks or whatever it is, right? And we forget these little things that they're like, "Oh, I'm just treating myself." Well, here's the deal. you're going to be able to treat yourself a lot more to a lot more things and a lot more experiences in life when you're a developer because you can basically work wherever you want. You can charge whatever you want and you can do pretty much anything you want in your own time. But you have to make some like commitments now and sort of slim down now in order to do those things, right? Otherwise, you're just going to be stuck in your situation forever. Go ahead, Danny.
No, I have a really good example of that too, which is, when we got into it, like I knew I wasn't gonna be able to do stuff for a while, but I made a deal with myself that like if I committed, did it, and got working in development, one of the things I would do would buy myself this lens I've wanted, like a camera lens I've wanted
Mhm.
forever, and they're expensive.
Oh,
Cameras, you
yeah,
got
they're
anybody's
real
into
expensive.
photography? Yeah, it's one of the things that sucks about it. They cost more. But this lens I've wanted forever, and I finally got it for myself because I've been making money doing freelance work, and I have enough now, and I can buy it, and it's awesome. It's like one of
Yeah,
the best feelings is like getting something that you really want because you've actually put off everything else, all the stupid stuff, and now you're committed to like actually making life better. And like I put in that post, I put a quote from it was Oprah Winfrey, I think, but she said something like, we can't we can't get to where we want to be by being the people we are now. Like, in other words, like you have to make changes of yourself if you want to be that future person that you imagine, right? Otherwise, you're just going to keep being the same person, and you keep going to do the same things, and you'll be in the same position. I think
totally.
that's really important to think about too.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And if you are sort of in the situation where you're saying, like, well, I don't have any money to spend on myself, go look at your bank account like today. Go to your banking app or whatever, look at your bank account and just look through the things that you purchased over the past month. And how many of those things are necessities, like real things that you need to survive, to be alive, and how many of those things are creature comforts? How many of those things are, oh, I just wanted the cappuccino at Starbucks, or I just needed that new shirt, or I just needed, because a lot of times we get convinced into buying these things in the moment. They're like point of sale purchases that are bullshit. And we just buy them because we're like, oh, I just need that little bit of pleasure, that dopamine hit. And it's like, at the expense of what, right? And that expense is you becoming a developer, you investing in yourself, you investing in your future, and having the life that you actually want, not the one where you're spending $50 on a pair of shoes to impress nobody, because nobody cares about your shoes, nobody cares about your shirt, nobody cares about your
No.
Starbucks cup, nobody cares about that, right? The only person that cares about that is you. So do you want the Starbucks, or do you want to be able to buy infinite Starbucks in the future, you know?
And yeah, and like Bryce said too in the economy, he said, most everybody has extra money. You just need to look at your budget, tighten the screws. It's not fun, right? But that's what you need to do sometimes. And like
Yeah.
the other side of it too is like, I know like personally, and I'm sure you guys went through this too, like when I was like depressed and unhappy at work and stuff, like buying things, we all do it because we live in a capitalist society. And capitalism loves that. It feels good. It's a diversion and a distraction. But that stuff means nothing the next day. You get that little
Oh, yeah.
hit, and then like it's just garbage afterwards. And like I've noticed like since I've been doing what I want now, like I don't buy frivolous things because I just don't want, I have no desire for it. Like, I get the stuff that I really need or that's important to me, and that's it. And like because I'm
Yeah.
happy. And I think that's a big part of it too. It's like, do you want to be happy or do you want to keep living the life you're living?
Yeah. And I think a lot of that comes from you just doing what you want to do, right? You find happiness in the things that you're doing, not the things that you own. And I
Yeah.
think that's something that happens to us in a capitalist society, is that we're told every day, everywhere we look, that you're only happy if you have these things. And I think that's also why people spend so much money on things and not on experiences, right? Because we're told like, oh, you just need this other thing or this whatever to feel whole. And then we give up on experiences of like learning new things or going on vacations or experiencing new things that are challenging to us, right? And that's actually where we feel the most enriched as human beings. I think that's really huge to have
Yeah.
that sort of understanding, is that the things that you buy, the material things, they never do anything in terms of like making you feel better. You get a dopamine hit, you get a quick, okay, that felt great to like make the purchase, but literally as you're walking out of the store with that item, it's gone. That dopamine is gone. But when you have a new experience or you have a new skill set, you can do that over and over and over, and you continually get those dopamine hits because you're actually doing something with your life.
I wanted to say something too about like, you know, the mentoring program we built out is all based on our past experiences, our frustrations with the boot camps and correcting them. Coming from my knowledge from being in universities for so long and seeing what's happened there, my frustration there is like it's all built around that to make people successful, to have accountability and to motivate you guys so that you can actually do this so that you're not by yourself the whole time. It's like having a group of friends that meet every Saturday and actually being able to motivate you and keep you accountable. And you can even reach out to us during the week because we enjoy that. It's fun and like
No,
make sure that the people that are working with us are doing well.
Chris says
Well,
infinite
here's where
Starbucks.
we yeah. Here's where we offer something that no other boot camp you'll find will offer. Is most people, when they want to learn coding, they don't just do it because they want to learn to communicate with a computer. That's not the reason why people learn coding. A lot of people will learn it because they want freedom, they want the money that freedom can buy them, and they want to be creative. So those three things, that's what we've actually done with our web dev incubator is we've made it where we will get you those things because we get you as quickly as you are humanly possible to do to the point where you can start working as a web developer and we guarantee that you will get those jobs. I've never seen that from any other boot camp, and that's the one thing that we can do that there's just nobody else in the market. Nobody else will do that for you, and nobody else will guarantee that. If you don't within a year working with us, you can keep working with us forever for free.
Yeah.
And if you're not happy in the first month, just let us know. We'll give you all of your money back.
Yeah.
We're
We
not
have like
doing
that
this
double
for money.
guarantee.
Yeah, we're not doing this for money. All of us are gainfully employed on our own in web development. And so we're just doing this because we don't want you guys to get screwed over like we got screwed over.
Yeah. And we want to build like actually quality developers of the future because there's so many shit developers out there.
Dude,
I'm
oh my
sorry,
God.
but it's the truth. And I want to see like more people who are actually dedicated to their future. I think, one of the things that I want to mention too is that our program doesn't just focus on the curriculum, the syntax, the frameworks. Like that is something that you can get everywhere for free, right? We don't need to teach you that. Like it's in there, but you don't need that part, right? That's everywhere for free. You can go on YouTube and learn anything you want about software development, and that's nobody's hiding that information from you. It's out there, right? You don't even need to pay for that. But what you are getting that's way above that and that you'll never find in any other boot camp is the human element of coding, right? And that's something that you just can't find anywhere. The human element is what makes software developers quality or shit. And
Yeah.
it's just the truth, right? And what do I mean by that human element? It's everything from being accountable, which is number one, to problem solving, to communication skills, to actually getting your ass out of your chair and like going and doing something with your life in the world, right? It's like, are you calling businesses? Are you like reaching out to businesses? Are you finding work? Or are you just sitting there and doing tutorials forever and expecting that somebody's just going to call you on the phone one day and be like, hey, this is Google. Can I give you a job? Because that's not the reality of life, right? That's just not what it is. So we want to make sure that we provide the human element of how are you going, like bridging that gap between learning and earning, right? That's what we're doing for you guys is we're really like trying to get you from tutorial hell to finding a job. And
Yeah.
that's all that, that's all that's missing from every other boot camp out there. And it's something that none of them are going to give you.
Yeah, I wanted to just give an analogy too of like, you know, it used to be the case, like, I think it was like 8.5% of kids from high school went to college. Now it's 70 something percent, right?
Yeah.
So the college degrees cost way more and they've been devalued. And the kids that are successful, they're the kids that are doing they're just like, but so many people go to college, they're like, I got the degree, and they expect something to happen. It's like, well, you got to apply to jobs. You got to keep doing
Yeah.
other stuff. There's so many other things you have to do on your own that the college is not going to help you with. And same with the boot camps. And it's like, we are going to help you with that. And that's the funny thing is like that's the whole point of this is to build something that actually helps you learn how to do those things, build those skills so you can actually be successful. Because there's so many terrible developers and there's so many people out there who like can't do. And if you can show that you can do it, if you can show that you're good, dude, you're gonna bypass them in a minute and you'll
Totally.
have no trouble getting work.
And it's nothing about syntax because everybody
No.
knows that. Like nobody asks me when I get development work. Literally nobody asks me like, what coding languages do you know? It's not a question that I ever. They're
Nope.
just like, hey, I see that you can build stuff. Do you want to work for me? Because I see that you
Well,
do good work. And that's it.
and when you apply to jobs a lot of times now, they do like they'll do like coding test type things because they're so worried about people that don't know anything and just saying that they know
Yeah.
everything. Right? I mean, that's
Hmm.
where you are
Yeah.
now. But like,
But
yeah,
they
I've never
also
been.
do it like when you go to an interview, they allow you to code in 25 different languages because they don't
Mhm.
care about the actual syntax that you know. They care that you can problem solve and that you can figure out solutions, but they're not like, hey, do you know this exact C sharp or JavaScript? They're like,
Yeah,
whatever coding language you know, solve this problem. And that's it.
yeah. Because guess what? They're all functionally the same.
Yeah, exactly. They're all pretty much the same exact thing.
Yeah.
Hmm. And so, for all of you listening right now, you've seen our free tier. I mean, all of this value we give you absolutely free, no questions asked. And look at the immense value. If you're just listening on the podcast, check us out on YouTube or check us out on Facebook. If you're just watching on Facebook, check us out on the podcast. But this is the free tier. We give all of this away for free. Just imagine what we do for our paid clients when we roll out the red carpet and literally walk you step by step from knowing nothing to getting hired, sometimes in as little as a couple months.
Yeah. Totally. I mean, it's, and I want to say this too, like the accountability here, and I'm not just bragging, but I'm bragging, is like mind blowing. I mean, I really thought about this the other day and I was like, man, it's crazy. Like we have literally met every Saturday for like 3 years now.
Yeah.
And if you want that kind of accountability with your own software development and becoming a web developer, we're here to make you accountable and to make sure that you actually get that job. Just think about how long you've been playing around with this idea. And do you want this year or do you not? Because if you don't, then you honestly, like I would say, just leave the group because it's not really worth your time to even be here. But if you do want this is the spot to be, right? And we can take you to that next level.
And yeah, it's hard doing stuff by yourself, but that's the whole point of this. Is like you won't be by yourself anymore. And I think that's
Yeah.
the other important thing to keep in mind. That's where that motivation, that accountability comes into so much because you have other people working with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, with that, thank you guys for tuning in. If you are interested in joining our web dev incubator and becoming a developer this year, I would highly recommend you do that. And just head over to codenoobs.io/mentoring. You can sign up right there. If you have more questions, feel free to just reach out to us in the group. Like, we're happy to chat with anybody. So, just ping us and say, hey, I was curious about what you talked about in the live stream today. And we'll give you all the details you want to hear. Otherwise, thanks again for tuning in. We will see you, as always, next Saturday at 9 a.m. Peace and love, guys.
Later.